This CD comes with the unit, and in it are all the manuals. There's a bunch of utilities in there for configuring the receiver, whatnot. There's a ton of stuff of information on it. Will come with the unit as well. But we're going to show you how to program it on the screen itself. And right now, obviously, we're inside, so the Coast Guard beacon is not the strongest in here. So right now I'm tracking 5 satellites. It is locked onto the beacon, which is number 286, and it is set as a rover. But just to configure these, in case some of these are set for something else, what you do is you hit the enter button, which in fact, let me turn off the light so you can see the screen a little bit better. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the enter button, which is down below here, and I will hit enter, and it takes me to mode setting, and I will continue by hitting enter again. And here you can change it from, well, actually these are all rovers, but how you manipulate the screen is you would right arrow, it would blink, and you would down arrow. Of course, these are all rovers, so it doesn't apply in this case. So you just hit enter, it accepts it. Now it went down to the next screen, which what we want here, it says auto beacon or beacon mode, and the option you have is auto power currently. We're going to right arrow, blinking that line, and you have a couple of options here. You have manual, where you would key in the frequency for the beacon you're trying to log on to. Disable, obviously, that's fair enough. And then you have auto power, which basically detects the strongest beacon, not necessarily the closest. And then you have auto range. Now auto range will detect the closest beacon to your job site, not necessarily the strongest. So auto range is probably the way to go in this case, unless you want to go with a manual. Yeah, and in the US you have a ton of beacons, and sometimes auto power may be a stronger signal but a lot further away, where the closer beacon is not as strong, but it will give you a better solution. So we'll stick with auto range. We'll hit enter. Then elevation mass. Trimble wants you to keep it at 10 degrees. They recommend you to stay there. Obviously you can manipulate that depending on your environment. You may want to go up, so you could block more of the horizon. You could go down if you want to see more of the horizon. Okay, I'm going to hit enter. GA530 is the antenna type. Again, to manipulate these screens, you right arrow till it's blinking, and you down arrow to toggle through. Once you've selected the one you want, of course I'm going to go back to the GA530. Once you select the one you want, it's still blinking, you'll hit enter, and it accepts it and moves on to the next one. Currently, this has a connection for the port LEMO, which we referred to earlier. If you wanted to bring in an external beacon source, like you know, some type of DGPS receiver, you could bring it into this port. In this case, we're not doing this. This does not actually configure the port. It only configures it to listen for beacon. So enter on that. And now here's your NEMA screens. Now, I'm not sure what which strings you want, but currently I've turned on GGA, and I've turned it on to the LEMO port, where you could configure it through the other two, but we're going to go with LEMO, and I currently have it at 1 Hertz. So once a second it's going to be spitting out GGA, and to manipulate that, you right arrow, GGA blinks. If you're not interested in manipulating the GGA string because you want that, but you want to change the port, you right arrow again, and well, actually enter, I guess it is. Let's just up arrow and down arrow so you can see that. Okay, that just changed the string. We're gonna stick with GGA. Enter that, and we'll go down arrow to LEMO, and then we'll right arrow, and LEMO will blink, and we can just toggle that. to all your different options. I want LEMO in this case, and I'll hit enter on that, and then right arrow once again, enter, down arrow, so it's on the 1 Hertz now, and then right arrow, and then we'll blink it 2 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15, 30, 60, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 Hertz, 5 Hertz, 2 Hertz, and 1 Hertz, which is typical. You don't really need it that fast. Sometimes your application does require it to be 5 or 10 Hertz. I'm going to hit enter, and that accepts that. If you need to turn on other strings other than GGA, so currently GGA is on, and then you go back, GGA, highlight it, we'll right arrow, blink it. Let's say you want VTG. I've turned on VTG as well. As you notice, when I selected VTG, it told me that it's LEMO and it's 1 Hertz. But so I'm not sure which strings you're going to need. Currently I have GGA and VTG on, which is probably what you'll need. Maybe GSV. In fact, we'll do GSV just so you, which is your satellite information. Okay, GSV. I'll hit enter, and I'll go down and tell it to go to LEMO, and I'll hit enter to accept the LEMO. I will go down once again to highlight the off. I will right arrow, make it blink, down arrow, and I will go to the 1 Hertz. Enter that, and I will just go down arrow. Well, actually I'll just go enter and move on, because I've got GGA, VTG, and GSV on currently on that LEMO port. I will hit enter and enter, and now GS off. It's a Trimble proprietary message. Maybe you need it, maybe you don't. I'm not going to turn it on. I'll hit enter, and it takes me back to the screen. It's logged to 301 beacon. Okay, that's the closer one. Obviously it was tracking, I think it was tracking another one earlier, but this is the closest one to me. Okay, I'm going to hit enter, and this is mode setting. Okay, and I'll right arrow and change the mode setting, and I want to get into, you can configure the Ethernet, because this thing can talk through the internet to configure. Okay, and then I'm going to down arrow again. I want the system set up. I'll hit enter on that, and you can change the languages here, same way. Right arrow, it blinks, up, down, whatever, and enter to accept that. Units, currently it's on meters, same difference, same thing. Enter. Precisions, right now it's set at your horizontal and vertical to 0.3, and I'm going to down, and your DGPS age is at 60 seconds, which should be good enough for a Coast Guard beacon. We'll go enter again, and this is where you configure your actual baud rates on your LEMO or your modem. And I've currently have the LEMO set to 9600 891, but this is where you manipulate that. Right arrow, it blinks, you can change the speed, and I will stick with 96. And of course, if you wanted to manipulate the parity and stop bits, you can do that here. Okay, so I'm going to hit enter because I'm not interested. So, and then this is configuring port 3, which we don't care about, I don't care about. Same way you do it. Screensaver is on auto, which is fine. Auto base is off, which is fine. And if you had an application file that you wanted a particular configuration, you could have it in here and you could select it. Right now there's only the current app file, and I'll hit enter and it brings you back to the front. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook up a 32960 cable. That's only because I have that open. I don't. This one's open as well, but I don't want to undo it. This is the one that belongs to the unit. This actually belongs to a 5700 or whatever, but it's all standard Trimble cabling. So I'm going to line it up, you have the LEMO port has a dash there, a line there, and the cable has a little red dot. Pretty simple. Kind of line it up, kind of wiggle it, and until you get it in. I'm in, and I have here in the workshop this cable, and I will run it to my serial input. Before I do that, I have it set to hyperterminal 96891.